because of the need to satisfy curiosity. Then you move on to the occasional or social use, where the drug user accepts to use the drug occasionally, only when offered by friends, for instance. Then he moves on to regular use. He or she moves on to regular use, where the user seeks out and uses the drug of choice more frequently and steadily. And finally, the last stage, which is dependence. This is the last stage where the drug of choice becomes part and parcel of the life of the drug user. He or she craves for it and finds it very difficult to part with it. Which are the commonly abused drugs? The commonly abused drugs are categorized into narcotics. These generally induce sleep, and they are also used to relieve pains associated with cough, surgery, terminal illness such as cancer. And we are talking of the opioids, morphine, codeine, heroin, and so on. Then you have the category of depressants, which are drugs that depress the central nervous system, slowing down the rate of the body and how the body functions. They are also used medically to induce sleep and to reduce nervousness and convulsions. So we are talking of diazepams, Valium, Lexotan, Librium, and so on. Next is the stimulants. These are drugs or substances that increase the activity of the central nervous system and induce a temporary sense of well-being, feel-good, self-confidence, and produce an increase in alertness. The hallucinogens are the next terrible category, which produce hallucinations, that is, experience of non-existent sensations. These chemicals cause changes in sensation, thinking, self-awareness, and emotions, as the angel dust, LSD, and that type of category. And overdose usually leads to death in this case. The most commonly abused drug worldwide and in Nigeria is a category on its own, which is cannabis. Has different names: hemp, wee, so many names. Actually, of the roughly 15 million drug users in Nigeria, 10 million use cannabis. We are talking of approaching 70% of our drug users. The cannabis has both stimulating and depressant effects and creates a sense of elation and sometimes euphoria. Then you have the category that we call miscellaneous. From the ingenuity of our youths, they look for all kinds of things to make them high, like sniffing lizard droppings, latrines, lacacera mixed with tom-tom, even glue, gasoline, petrol, paint thinners, correction fluids, kerosene, and all that. How do we address the challenges? Is the theme before us today. First, we must recognize that if 15 million is the rough figure of drug users in Nigeria, that means there's well over 160 million who are not taking drugs. And therefore, whatever steps are taken to protect our children and our youth, we must make sure that these 160 million are targeted together with the 15 million so that we don't have any more addition to that 15 million, but instead we want to cut it down. Therefore, the overall strategy must be of supply reduction on one hand, that is the supply chain of the drugs down to the streets, and demand reduction, that is from the consumption side. On the supply reduction aspect, the government uses its instruments and its institutions of state, like the NDLEA, the customs, the police, NAFDAC, the judiciary, and so on and so forth, to cut the supply of drugs. We need to trace the supply from overseas, from the route to the ports, and equally face local production and cultivation and stop it, and fish out those who are responsible and punish them severely so that it will be a deterrence and a lesson for people to know that they ought not traffic in drugs. Because if we stop the drugs and there are no more drugs, then there's no drugs to abuse. So that's key, that there must be a strategy for blocking the availability and the accessibility of drugs. And our committee has worked very hard on this aspect, and we have the strategies. Part of it also is the banning of some of the categories, like the codeine was banned. I should mention that the agencies that I just mentioned are trying their best, because if you look at it in the course of the last 6 months, tramadol is very, very scarce. Very, very scarce and expensive. It has gone, in some cases, 5 times more or 10 times more the original cost because of the seizures. The customs, the NDLEA, NAFDAC in the last 6 months or so, they have seized about 100 containers of tramadol. And this is a job well done, and they need to be encouraged. On the demand side, that is consumption side, that is another area of focus which affects our children. And the first point I would like to raise is, if you as a child is confronted maybe by your peers or by friends, come and try something, come and try this one, you'll feel good. What should be your response? The first is say no. What is the first thing to do? Say no and be assertive about it. You could change the subject to something else. You could suggest alternative activities instead of drugs. Why don't you go and play some game? You could ignore the person or just simply walk away. Be involved in hobbies or other positive enterprises as kids. Get involved in religious activities. Avoid situations or places where drugs are used. Avoid people who use drugs. Build your self-esteem. Know your positive qualities and depend on these when under stress. Be committed to academic and school activities. Obey rules and regulations in the school, home, or workplace. And when in a problem, confide in your parents, teachers, religious leaders, or trusted adults. Encourage those who are using drugs to seek help. And report, this is very important, report those using or selling drugs to parents, to your parents or to your school authorities or law enforcement. It's very important. For parents, how do you identify if your child is abusing drugs? Most parents believe that, no, it's another person's child that will take drugs, not my own. I trust my own child, he will never do it. And sometimes I tell you, if you want to recognize or know the face of someone who takes drugs, look into the mirror. And when you look into the mirror, you see your own face, normal, isn't it? So someone who is using drugs may even be normal in appearance. So parents should watch out and be very concerned. When I got this assignment, all my family, I got us to do drug tests to make sure that we're all clean. I know my family is clean, but I thought that I ought to do that so that everyone is comfortable with the assignment. So to identify kids who are using drugs, first, if you look around their rooms, there are certain drug paraphernalia that you could find, and this will raise eyebrows and questions. Items used like paper wrappers, which is used to wrap cannabis, pipes, syringes, cannabis seeds, matches, and ashtrays. Check their school bags at random, their pockets. You find some kids who are not using perfume, suddenly they start using perfume. Maybe they are trying to hide the smell of something. Sometimes they use air fresheners and incense where they were not using it before. Tom-tom sweets to kill the odors of probably tobacco and cannabis. You may find them reading drug-related magazines and interested in those maybe actors, singers and so on, who we all know are prone to taking drugs. When you see these things, you may notice the signs of loss of weight and physical deterioration. When you begin to notice this in your children, you know there are some issues surrounding it. Memory loss, short attention span, incoherent speech, discoloration of the teeth, and so on. Pale skin. The personal hygiene, when your kids are not taking their baths regularly, they look disabled, and their dresses, no personal hygiene, bloodshot eyes, and so on. Always using sunshades. He was not using sunshade before, then he started using sunshade inside the house. You have to take it out and see what is going on there. The changes in behavior and the pocket money, you find is going faster than it used to, and some stealing is going on around the house. These are all telltale signs for parents. And the parents should be very, very observant. These are some of the responses for what they should do. They should be observant. Be friendly with the children first, so that you can get to the bottom of it and ask questions, but be firm. Let your yes be yes. Above all, set good example. You must be the role models of your kids. Check the friends that they keep, their backgrounds, and it's good to reward efforts of your children. Support them in the area of potential. Counsel them. Watch out for their religious well-being. Dialogue with the children But at the end of the day, if you believe they are in it and you are not a psychiatrist or an expert, counselor, seek medical help. Parents must seek medical help before things get out of hand. Very quickly, the other areas of demand reduction, especially for kids in school, would be what we are working on now, to expand the program that is called Unplugged. This is a preventive program in schools that targets the ages between 10 and 14 years of age by trained teachers under the auspices of the Federal Ministry of Education, the United Nations Office of Drug and Crime, funded by the European Union. It's a two-phase project. It started with just one federal government college per senatorial zone, but as per political zone, and it has gone on now to 32 FGCs across the country, teaching like 20,000 students. Now, this is just a pilot program, and we are going to move to the next level, which is to expand it to every school. We might expand it to every school. So the federal government and state governments are going to collaborate. These are all going to be in our reports on how to achieve that. Equally, the curricula will now be introduced, because we have seen that drug abuse has started even in primary schools. So it's going to be in the curricula from that level to secondary and above. And of course, the other, very quickly running through the other aspects, would be the community. Communities will contribute by forming committees at that level to deal with drug abuse at the community level before it works its way up. Then the religious organizations, traditional institutions, Nigerians respect both. They listen intently to sermons, and the advocacy from these groups, including the media, will go a long way in helping the matter of prevention of abuse. Of course, the government has its own side to play, which is to do more in the area of treatment, or counseling, treatment, rehabilitation, and skills, as well as getting more jobs. Already, the government of His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari is working on this poverty alleviation and job creation. As we all know, we've all been witnessing trader money, market money, the loans that are coming from the Bank of Industry for manufacturing activities, small and medium-scale enterprises to grow up. These are all ongoing, and government will be intensifying some of these activities. So, in a nutshell, I thought I should touch a bit on these various areas and give the assurances that the drug abuse scourge in Nigeria, we can deal with it. We can deal with it, and the president himself is committed. He has the political will, and we will soon get our reports in, and the implementation will start, and I'm sure before long, this matter will be a thing of the past. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Our father has set the tone, and in no sooner time, the children, the panelists will be coming up to take this conversation further. But before they do that, just as a way to say welcome to our distinguished guests, of course, our mother, who is ably represented by our second mother, the wife of the Vice President, Mrs. Oludolapo Osibajo. Ladies and gentlemen, the TIFF Cultural Troupe are ready to entertain us. And immediately after that, we'll be having the panel of children from the Nigeria Parliamentary to come and take this conversation further. But in the meantime, let us all put our hands together to welcome the TIFF Cultural Troupe for their performance. Please put your hands together for them. Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much.